Universe. Media. Network. 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 Network.
All right, successors, we're here today with Fred Shatzoff. He is a very experienced real estate investing lender in the Newark area. Fred, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Antonio. It's a pleasure to be on your show today and, let your audience get to know more about me and what we do.
All right, Fred. So are you ready to talk?
I am ready. Real
estate investing and lending today, because this is going to be a little bit of a different conversation. All right. So aside from your busy business life, tell us a little bit about your personal life.
Okay. I am a big time sports advocate, especially of the New York Giants. I've been following them my whole life. I love to go to as many games as possible. I mean, it has become rather expensive to go, but, I try to go to a few games a year. I also like following baseball and basketball. I like to go to minor league games these days. And the reason I say that is right here in my area in New Jersey, there's about 3 teams that play. You can go to a game for $6. Parking is typically free. If you want to get something to eat there, a beer, a hot dog, it's a reasonable price. And, it's a fun night out. I mean, as compared with if you go to Yankee Stadium, you could be spending $1,000 a night for the family. I don't know how people do it. I mean, because I think back when I was a kid, I would go with my father, and in those days, you could bring your own food with you. And what we would do is we would get the bleacher seats. And at that time, my father worked for the post office, but some of the people that he worked with were ushers there at Yankee Stadium. So, he would tell him he was going to be there. He would go find that person. Obviously, he would take care of him. I mean, I have no idea how much he took care of him. What did I know about money? They would walk you to your box seats and dust off the seats. And, it was a fun night like that. We used to do the same thing with the New York Knicks. So, that's prohibitive. I mean, I like to walk. I like to exercise. I like to read, because you want to keep your mind and your body active as long as you can, because you're never too old to learn anything. So, that's kind of what I like to do, to be honest with you.
Okay, so your business, the company you work with, let's see, Everest Business Capital.
That is correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, how long have you been with that company?
I've been with them for about 5 years.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about what Everest Business Capital is and what they do.
Sure. Okay, so basically what we are is we are loan brokers, and our main forte is in the real estate lending space. Whether you're a real estate investor who wants to buy a property, wants to fix it up, and then wants to sell it or wants to rent it, we can help you as far as that is concerned. Those loans are, as I tell people, those loans are relatively easy. And some people will say, and some people don't believe it. Well, I'll say to them, let me ask you a question. Have you bought a house? Most people say yes. I'm going to say, okay, what kind of documentation did you have to supply? You had to supply the last 2 years' tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs. They had to verify your employment. They had to verify your assets. With these type of loans, they lend strictly to corporations. So technically, you could form an LLC today and buy a property tomorrow. We don't need any financials on the business. So it's really just getting, the right documentation. You got to have halfway decent credit to qualify. I mean, some loans we could go down to a credit score of 620. Typically, they're looking for 680. Anything below 620 is going to be very difficult. You can't have any bankruptcies. You can't have any foreclosures. You need to have some money, to use for down payment and closing costs. I get people call me. They think they can be a real estate investor with $500. It just doesn't work. I mean, you can't even buy a house with $500. I mean, you got to have some skin in the game. And I'll tell somebody, look, maybe you can get a money partner. Maybe you can get a credit partner. I mean, it's, that's really what you need to do if you're going to be able to be an investor out there. Sometimes I'll say to people, you know what? Maybe you should start out wholesaling first, because you don't need any money as far as that is concerned to build up capital. So, you really have to do things in steps and stages. If you have no money and you really want to get into real estate investing, start out with wholesaling. You can make $5,000 to $10,000 on a transaction. Then if you still need to build up more capital, do some fix and do some flips. Maybe you make $30,000, $40,000 profit on that. And then from there, then you could get into buying rental properties. It really depends upon what your goal is. I mean, ultimately your goal should be financial freedom for yourself. And how do you create financial freedom? You have other people paying your bills and you put your money to work. On the other side, we can help someone buy a rental property. And as far as that is concerned, for the most part, it's the same thing. We're looking at what is the rental income on the property versus the mortgage payment. We call it the debt service ratio. And as long as it debt services, you are going to qualify. And certainly you're not going to buy a property where you're going to have, your mortgage payment is $1,800 and your rent is $1,200. That doesn't make sense. Now, it's different if you're turning around and you're renting out your primary residence, and stuff like that, to buy another property and move up, and you do that on a temporary basis and you take a loss. But ultimately, if you're going to buy investment properties, it makes sense to buy a 2, 3, or a 4 family, because if you buy a 1 family, now you lose that rental, you lose that one tenant. Now what do you do?
Right.
But again, these are all no doc loans. They are you can get a 30-year fixed rate loan on something like that. There you can own as many rental properties as you want, unlike Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, who says you can only own 10 properties. And rates are competitive. I mean, sure, they've gone up. I mean, 2 months ago, they were 4.5%. Right now, they're about 6.5% to 7%. But so are regular mortgages higher. That's something you can't control. And you can't get hung up on that. You got to say, does the property cash flow at this higher rate? If it does, then buy the property. You can always refinance at a later date if rates come down. But, some people get very hung up on all the fees, all the rates and everything like that. You're never going to be a successful investor. Look, when I first started out in the business, and I was a real estate agent, at that time rates were 18 to 20%, and people were buying houses. We were having the sellers hold the mortgage with 20% down, do a 30-year fix with a 5-year balloon. So there's always ways, to put a deal together. You have to want to do it, but you have to have some money. You have to have some skin in the game. Now, going back to the fix and the flip, those are a short-term loan, typically up to 13 months. It's an interest-only loan, and you pay as you draw the money down. Their rates could be anywhere from, say, 7.5% to 10%. It's an interest-only loan. And typically on that, you can borrow anywhere from 80 to 90% of the purchase price and 100% of the repairs, and your maximum ARV, also known as after repair value, has to be 70 to 75% in order for the deal to work. Again, they are relatively easy loans to get, but you need to work with someone that knows what they're doing and sets realistic expectations. Because the other day I get a call, this guy claims to be a private money broker, and I don't think this guy has a clue about anything, because he had contacted me 2 weeks ago. He said, I'm looking to borrow money. I've been declined by all sorts of lenders out there. Do you have any loans where there is no credit check? So, I wrote to the guy and I said, no, I says, but, if you submit your Credit Karma report to us, I can have my lender pre-flight it and see what we can do here to get you money. So he then says to me, well, I'm having a problem with my Credit Karma report. So I said to him, wow, you're the first person that's ever told me they've had a problem with their Credit Karma report. And I'm saying, maybe he doesn't have Credit Karma. So it turns out that he says to me, well, I don't have a printer. I can't print my credit report. He says, well, you could download it. Well, I don't even have a computer. And I'm like, well, what kind of lender can you be and everything? So I look at the guy's LinkedIn profile. I'm not sure I connected with him. He says he's a private lender for 2 years. Before that, he was a Lyft driver. Now, then I see the guy calling me the other day. He says, would you be willing to co-broker a loan with me? I said, sure. He says, I have a guy that called me and he wants to close on Thursday. I said, that's not realistic. I said, nobody closes in 2 days. Look, the only way you could close, the other option for people is there are people out there who have money in IRAs or pension funds, and they are willing to lend that money to private individuals, but you have to know how to connect with those people. Now, I do know someone that does have a Zoom meeting every other week where he has these people that have private money, self-directed IRAs with him that will lend out money. Basically, you can come on to that meeting, talk for 5 minutes about what you're proposing, put your information in the Zoom chat, and if an investor is interested, they'll contact you. But I don't know what the rates and what the terms are going to be because I don't get involved. But if that's something someone truly wants, that's truly considered private money. You have other places that say they're private lenders. Well, yes, they are, but it's not private money. This money is all securitized on Wall Street, and it's all considered hard money, and they all do require an appraisal, and they all do require a credit check. Because I said to this guy, I said, would you lend $200,000 to someone without checking their credit?
Huh.
He said, no. I said, well, so why do you think that I'm going to have a lender? I said, it's not like lending someone $100 or $200 that you work with because they're short and they'll pay you back Friday or next Friday. Okay, you're taking a chance. If they don't pay you back, the word spreads in the office, but no one's going to give you money like that. Yeah, maybe you might get it from a mother, father, brother, sister, or uncle, but someone who doesn't know you, they're not going to give that to you. Now, if you borrowed from a private individual the first time, let's say, and you had to supply your Credit Karma or credit report, maybe they wanted to do a drive-by appraisal, and you paid them back and it was successful, then they might lend you the money the second time. But, some people don't seem to understand, these private lenders don't check your credit. Because I had another guy tell me that. I says, oh, really? I just said, I don't know of anybody that does that. I said, are you going to lend somebody $200,000 without checking their credit? Most people are going to say no. Well, so why should someone else lend it to you? Oh, well, I have an 800 credit score. I said, really doesn't mean anything, because I've had people tell me they have an 800 credit score. Most of the time, the credit comes back, it's lower. I mean, once in a while, you have somebody that comes back higher, but for the most part, it is lower. I mean, I try to set realistic expectations with people. And I say to everyone, I said, look, even though I know you've invested before, you really should call me before you go under contract. Let's run the numbers. Let's make sure the numbers work. It's better to have a second or a third set of eyes, look at the property. But, some people don't. And then all of a sudden they're in a jam. It's just like you get some wholesalers, they want to close in 2 weeks. Well, it's not realistic right now, because you need to get an appraisal. The real estate volume is very busy. Why not just tell the seller, look, we'll close within 30 days, so that you're not putting pressure on everybody. You got to be realistic with your expectations, because, one guy said to me, well, that's what the closing date said. I said, well, let me tell you something. As long as I've been in lending, I said, please don't take this the wrong way, but the closing date doesn't mean anything. I said, there's always some type of delays. I said, you have to be realistic with the seller and with the borrower. I mean, look, we'd all like to close and we'd all like everything in a rush, but it doesn't work that way. I mean, you need time to get things done, but there's sometimes we get things done in 21 days. You know what? You should be, kissing the ground and saying, wow, that was great. I closed in 21 days, or that was great. I closed in 30 days. I mean, but, the problem is, I think some people are afraid to say something to the seller. Well, why? I mean, you really can't.
Why do you feel Everest is a better choice for a lender than the other lenders that are around there? Because some of the people you mentioned, they may feel put off to where you're like, well, there has to be somebody better than talking to Fred or whatever. What do you say to people who say that there's better options for them?
Well, basically what I do is I explain to the person, look, I've been in lending for over 30 years. The last 5 years, I work strictly with real estate investors. We are a broker. So what that means is we have relationships with different lenders out there, and we have vetted these lenders out there. We know which lenders, are truthful, are going to do what they say that they're going to do. And if we need, let's say a favor, or we need an exception on something, we know that we can get an exception, as compared with if someone goes directly to one of these lenders and suppose there's a problem, suppose the credit score is a little low, or the value is a little low, you're not going to be able to get anything done unless you have, worked with them before. Plus, come 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you can't talk to anybody. Okay, so if you need help with something, you can reach me 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. I mean, don't call me 1 o'clock in the morning. There's nothing I can do at 1 o'clock in the morning. But in dealing with someone like me, I've seen almost every situation. Plus, I offer exceptional service. You're gonna reach me. I mean, I'll give you an example. During the pandemic, okay, all of a sudden I had loans that were ready to close, and then all of a sudden all these lenders got afraid, and I had to call my borrowers and tell them, look, right now it looks like we can't close. I says, let me try to see what I can do here. Now I was able to get some of them closed, and I went to one company. They've been after me to do business with them. So I called the guy, and it seemed like they were going to be able to do it. I said, well, can we use this appraisal from the other lender? And I think I sent him a text. He sent me a text that he's on the phone and he'll get back to me. Do you know the guy is still on that same phone call since 2 years ago? I mean, now I've gotten some emails from him. I said, I says, well, I'm still waiting for a phone call from 2 years ago, and now you want me to do business with you?
Right.
I mean, you can't be, look, if there's an issue with something, you can't be afraid to tell people. You can't dilly-dally around. As much as you don't want to tell somebody, the property under appraised or your credit didn't come in the way that it did, you know what? They're going to have more respect for you. Maybe they're going to get upset, but you know what? At least I was truthful with them, and I try to take a consultative approach where I give some recommendations on some things that you can do to improve.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest things that I need in my life is proper communication. To me, it seems like the simplest thing that we can do, and so many people fail at it on a daily basis, and I don't understand the reason.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like if someone sends me, documents via email, and look, you may be busy, I just sent back a quick email, received, thanks. So at least you're not sitting wondering, gee, did he receive the paperwork, that he sent me? Or you could say received, we'll review it later. If I need anything, I'll let you know. At least you're acknowledging that you received it, as compared with, drop dead silence.
Right.
You start to wonder and say, gee, did they receive it? Why aren't they at least acknowledging, I mean, you don't need to write, a novel of War and Peace to somebody. They just want to know that you received it.
What's the one word or phrase that got you interested in the lending business? I'm quite curious about that.
Well, ever since I was a child, I always liked math. I liked numbers, and I went to school to become an accountant. I did some accounting for a couple of years. I really didn't like it. I didn't like being confined in the office at all. And I was saying, well, maybe I'll do something else. So I saw a sign at a real estate office that they were looking for real estate agents. I went in there, I talked to the guy. I liked what he had to say. And, I went to school at night, got my real estate license. I liked it. I mean, and, I had some lenders approach me about, coming to work for them. And, the one thing that I liked numbers, I liked real estate. I guess what enticed me was, okay, you know what? I don't know, was I 23, 24 years old? Okay. I'm going to get a paycheck every week. I'm going to get a draw against my commissions, and I'm going to have some benefits, and I'm going to have some retirement. So I kind of fell into the business is kind of what happened, and it evolved over time. And, it's very, it is interesting. I mean, there's so many different facets. Because this was many years ago, I don't know, 25 years ago. I started doing some business with a real estate agent, and they were building what we call modular homes. And some people may not be familiar with what modular homes are. Basically, what they are is, it's a home that's built in a factory in different pieces. Now, you don't see it as much anymore. So I actually went out there to the factory where they build the homes. And, what's very interesting is the house is built in a controlled environment. It's the same as a stick-built home, but the difference is, while the home is being built, it's not sitting outside dealing with rain or snow or heat or humidity. It's built in a controlled environment. The home can be customized any way that you want. And then what happens is when it gets to the location, they put it onto the foundation. And, there's times I remember, you're in a neighborhood. I'm like, okay, go out in the morning, and all of a sudden, like, wait a minute, wasn't there a vacant piece of land here? And you realize that, okay, that's a modular home. But these things it's unbelievable the way that they're built. I mean, it was and I think I went to 2 or 3 different factories just to see how it was built. It's amazing the way that it's built and the quality of construction on something like this.
Yeah, I really like the whole modular home thing. Now it's really starting to kick off because they're starting to realize that the costs of building homes, stick-built homes, you got workers out there, you got to pull permits and all of this stuff throughout the entire process. It's expensive and it's extremely time-consuming.
That's true too. You're right.
It's not even worth it anymore.
Exactly, and the quality is because the first time you think about it, you're like, oh, it's probably going to be a piece of crap and something like that, but it's really not.
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And to watch it and talk to these people, it really opens your eyes up. That's for sure.
What's the favorite part about what you do?
I like the fact that, when we're at the closing day, that we got everything done, and we got everything done, relatively smoothly, because every deal is going to have a little hiccup, whether you realize it or not. I mean, I'll give you an example, and this is something that I never had this happen to me before. I had a guy, his last name was Smith, okay? And very common name. So with these type of loans, besides doing a credit check, they do a background check just to see if there's anything else on there. So all of a sudden they tell us that there's an $18,000 tax lien. Okay, so I said, okay. So I talked to the borrower, and he said, I don't know anything about it. So I think the I said, Jerry, you have a very common name. It may not be yours. I said, let's see what happens. So then the lender sends me the LexisNexis report. Okay. And I send that to the borrower, and, we start to find out that he said, yes, I was involved with this corporation. Yes, I did live at this address. And this was 7-8 years ago. So, he tried to contact the Department of Taxation in Pennsylvania. You know what that's like. You can't get anybody.
Right.
You send an email, they give you a kind of standard boilerplate answer. So yeah. I said to him, well, this corporation that you were involved with, do you still talk to the business partners? He said, yeah, I do. So I said, why don't you reach out to the business partner? And I had to push this guy a number of times. He was just a little too laid back. So he finally gets a hold of them. And it turns out that this corporation had declared bankruptcy. Okay. So, he gets me the bankruptcy papers. I send it into the lender, and they said they still want proof that this tax lien is paid. Now, all along, I'm thinking to myself, and this is a state tax lien, because I know if you declare bankruptcy and you have an IRS tax lien, that still does not go away. And I'm saying, I think it's the same thing with a state tax lien, but I'm not sure. So, I look and we get the schedule of bankruptcy, the debts. It says state of Pennsylvania. It says some other states because it was some kind of personnel company for staffing. And it says state of Pennsylvania tax lien. The amount of the debt is unknown. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is Chapter 7. I said, I thought Chapter 7 is strictly for personal bankruptcy, let alone why is this, debt listed as unknown on here? So I'm the kind of person that I'm a very hands-on guy. I'm a problem solver. So I turn around and I see a phone number for the attorney. And I call the attorney and leave a message. And I'm saying I'm probably not going to hear from this attorney. I figure this loan is dead. So the attorney calls me back. He was very nice. He explained to me, you can file Chapter 7 for a business. It's very rare. He said, we felt that this was the best way to go. I said, okay. And I said, is there a reason that there's not an amount of the debt listed on there on the schedule for these various states? He said, well, we didn't know the exact amount. Plus, even if we did, they don't disappear with a Chapter 7. I said, okay, that's kind of what I thought here is what I said. So I called the borrower. I said, I think we're going to be dead here. I said, I don't think we're going to be able to get this loan closed. And this guy knew quite a bit about some of the credit laws, and he wrote a very detailed letter explaining the whole thing. Now, the mistake that the guy made was when he left the corporation, okay, and he never got separation papers. So we send it in to the lender, and 2 days later, the lender comes back and they approve the exception. Now, in the meantime, I called a few of my other lenders just to see, and they all pretty much told me you're going to be dead. He's probably going to have to wait another 6 months, and then it'll be completely gone. And one guy said to me, well, you happen to get the right guy. I said, well, why did I get the right guy? Well, I'm a tax attorney, and I know these rules, and I know everything. So I told that to the borrower, and then, we got this email the next morning. I didn't say anything to the lender what I found out. I said, let me see what they determine. And, we got it closed. But most other people would have done nothing to try and help the guy. But I'm like, wait a minute. If his name is on the bankruptcy and he didn't sign, as I think he was the chief operating officer, his name really should not have been listed on it because he really wasn't part of that corporation. He had left it, but the problem was he really didn't have any proof. So, most people won't get involved, but if something isn't right, I'm going to get involved and I'm going to try and help somebody. I mean,
Yeah.
A lot of people won't do that.
Right. So you love the aspect of helping, which that's good because a lot of people just go and they go through the motions and they don't necessarily care about what they do. So I can really appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, I try to look at things from a common sense perspective. I mean, I don't look at things and say, oh, this is what the rules say. These are blinders.
Yeah.
You got to think a little bit outside the box. And unfortunately, they don't teach that in school. And most people don't know how to think outside the box. You got to become a little solution oriented. You can't just sit there, oh, we can't do it. Sorry. No, you got to try to think and say, well, how can we work around this if we can work around it? Sometimes you can't work around it. But in this particular situation, I'm saying there has to be a way to work around this. And, thank God I persisted and pursued. And the guy sent the letter to me and said, what do you think? I looked at it and I said, Jerry, let's change a few of these paragraphs. And we changed it. I read it again. I said, no, let's change this. And then I said to him, what do you think? He says, okay. He says, all right, you know what? Let's send it in. Let's see what happens here as far as what is the lender going to do. And, we got lucky. That much I will say. I mean, but, like I said, a lot of people just won't do that. So
Yeah.
that's another reason why someone should deal with someone like me, because if there is some kind of an issue, I'm going to do the best that I can to get it resolved.
Along with that story and your previous stories, I know you've been through a lot of ups and downs. Okay.
Oh, without a doubt.
Now, when throughout all these years of you doing business, when was the time, and tell us that story about when you felt most unsuccessful?
I would say probably early in the beginning of my career. Maybe I was 2 years into the business, and at that time there were a lot of savings and loans and a lot of companies going out of business. And we got a phone call. It was a Friday at 3:00 that we are closing this afternoon at 5:00.
Oh my.
And here I'm like 25, 27 years old. You have all these loans in process, and I'm like, all right, what am I going to do now? So I literally spent the day on Saturday calling all these borrowers and letting them know I have some bad news. I said, but hang on a little bit. Let's try to see what we can do here. And obviously I didn't get much sleep that weekend, but we were able to cut a deal with another lender where they took over our pipeline and our loans, and we were able to get loans closed with this company. We really didn't stay there too long. It wasn't the best situation, but at least we were able to help most of these people, so at least they didn't lose out on their house. That was really a scary time for me. It wasn't so scary that I'm saying, gee, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? I mean, because it's not like now. Look at the cost of gas. Look, you go to the grocery store, you can't get groceries. Now the latest is people are having trouble getting baby formula. It wasn't like that at that time, but it was more, you're worried about, telling these people may not be able to get their home. And look, the hardest part was telling the people, but, I just said to myself, look, you can't sit there and dance around. Like some people try to dance around and give a story, just, what, you just tell the people this is what's going on, give us a couple days. Some people decided they were just going to go apply elsewhere. I said, that's fine. That's up to you. I said, I can't hold you hostage here, but I said, but at least I'm telling you what's going on rather than you hear it through the grapevine. I mean, some people, you can't be afraid to tell somebody what's the worst that's going to happen? You get some people that are going to threaten, that are going to come there to the office and harm you and all that. And, yeah, have I had some people come to the office and start to yell and scream? Yeah, I've never had to call the police. Now, today, it's a little bit different. Everything's done through the internet. What are they going to do? I mean, but you can't be afraid to tell people, if there's bad news. Look, life's not perfect. It's not all smooth. There is ups and there are downs, and you have to just be manly enough about it and learn to deal with it, because it's not perfect. You're gonna lose family members. You're gonna have people that are gonna get sick, people that are gonna get cancer. People are gonna get killed. I mean, it's you don't want to see it happen, but it's just part of life.
How did you get through that? What did you do? Did you stay in the lending world, or did you have to actually change industries briefly?
No, I mean, I stayed in the lending world. Look, we were fortunate within less than a week, we were able to, cut a deal with another lender where they took over our
Oh, I see.
pipeline and our loans. So, you know, we went there and worked with that lender. I think maybe we were there 6 months or a year, maybe because we saw they weren't, the greatest lender in the world, but under the circumstances, what were you going to do? It was either that or completely walk away, and let these people find their own loans. And that now it really becomes even more of a nightmare. So at least they were able to use the appraisals and all this other stuff. We just had to get the appraisers to change the name of the lender.
What's the one positive goal you're focused on in your business today?
I mean, no matter how bad things are, I try to stay positive, and I try to say to myself, there's always somebody that's in a worse situation than I am, and I try to stay as positive as I can. If I, get upset or something bothers me, you know what? You leave the office, or you go take a walk, or you do something to relieve your stress, because you can't dwell on something forever. Stress will kill you.
Yeah, it will. What's the favorite piece of technology you tend to use every day?
I would say, I like using my laptop much better than my cell phone. Some people do everything on their cell phone, but my biggest problem on the cell phone is you could type something 4 or 5 times, and your fingers, not that I have big fingers, they're normal fingers, but you look on a cell phone, and the screen is too small.
Yeah.
Besides that, I mean, so yeah, I mean, to do everything on a computer, you get some people, they do everything on their cell phone. I don't know how you do that. I can't.
I don't either. It drives me crazy.
Absolutely.
How many loans right now are you working with at the moment?
Right now, I probably have about 5 to 7 loans in process. I mean, it's very competitive out there. It's not, and when I say it's competitive, you have a lot of investors bidding on the same properties. So it's not so much that, I have a lot of competition. Yeah, there is a lot of competition, but, for the most part, look, if people do business with me once, they're going to come back and do business 2, 3, 4 times. And, let's face it, if you get a referral, it's much better than someone that is, cold and blind. Although, we do get people like that too. And it's just a matter of building up that trust and that relationship so that they'll do business with you.
Fred, if anyone wants to get a hold of you and utilize your lending services or anything like that, what's the easiest way for them to connect with you?
They can either call me at 551-272-9067, or they can send me a message, Fred at everestbusinesscapital.com, or they can visit my website, everestbusinesscapital.com, and they can send me a message through there.
Since entering into your business world, what do you feel you're most grateful for?
I guess, being in the same industry for a long time, almost my entire career, whereas you see some people make a career change 2 or 3 times, So, I mean, I'm grateful for that. Look, I like it. Look, it's not physical labor. I mean, this is the kind of business that you could, at least I feel I could do, the rest of my life as long as my mind is sharp and I'm able to think. Obviously, if I can't think, then I'm not going to be able to do the business. It's not like someone who's a roofer or a carpenter. I mean, you can only do that for so long, then you're really going to start to hurt as far as aches and pains and everything along those lines are concerned.
So before I hit you with the last question, just want to tell you, thank you very much for being on the show today. I really enjoyed hearing your insight over the years, because a lot of us don't get that opportunity to hear people who have been through this for so many years. So I really thank you for being on the show.
No, thank you. I mean, it was my pleasure. It was really, a lot of fun. I mean, it really was, it's, sometimes you think you don't have anything to tell or share, but you start to realize and you start to think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably sit here and go another 2-3 hours, but, I don't know if my voice would hang on that long.
Finally, Fred, what's your definition of, instead of real estate investing success, I'd like to say business success. What is your definition of business success?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would say, look, business success is someone that has been in business for a long time, has, not been sued, has been able to change with the technology. Because when I first started out, we had to handwrite all the applications. We had beepers. We had to go find a payphone. Nobody had fax machines. Nobody had email or anything along those lines. So, I think to be able to survive and change with the times, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, you have to learn some new skills, but that's what keeps you, I guess, vibrant and young. Some people, well, I can't do this or I can't do that. You can. Look, what I've always done is, if I'm learning something new, I take some notes, write some things down. You might have to ask the same question 2 or 3 times, and then eventually it becomes habit.
Successors, I hope you've enjoyed my quick conversation today, and I hope you've gained just a little more insight into achieving your financial freedom and reaching your goals. For more real estate investing content like this and a lot more, please visit UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com. That's UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay grateful, stay successful, and be free. Music by Stream Beats. Universe Media Mastering. Your audio more listenable.